Whereas in the 90s and, the odds, you can name companies that were up and coming that, consumers would recognize and people were excited about. Because there's so few of those, Tesla, Facebook, Netflix, we battle about Twitter, what's going to happen there. That's why these arguments are happening, because there's so few options.
Ad nauseum. Mark, stay right there, if you will. We had Andrew Romans of Rubicon Venture Capital booked to have this very discussion about the SEC and the VC community. He joins us now. Andrew, as you were waiting, listening to Mark's comments, what is it that you wanted to say or bring up here in this discussion?
Yeah, hey Mark, I agree with you on the fact that startups stay private longer, and the time delay between Series A and exit has gone from 2 years to 7, 8, 9, maybe 11 years. But I'll challenge you that there is liquidity, right? I mean, founders can sell maybe 20% of their founder stock into the next financing round, so they can sell to their VCs.
Oh, absolutely. Or even but what about the other 300, 400, 500 people in their company? And what happens?
So on that, you mentioned that. So right now we're seeing employee-wide liquidity programs. So you've got direct secondary funds, you've got growth funds coming in saying, we want to buy some of this company. The founders don't want to sell more, and so they actually do an employee-wide liquidity program.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Okay, so let me restate. There's some liquidity, but it's not nearly as good as being part of the IPO market. When you do secondary market liquidity, first of all, that was part of what the FTC is going to be looking at. So who knows how long it's going to be available or how it's going to be available. Secondly, when you're part of a public company and you own the stock and you get to see it mark to market every day, there's a sense of pride. You get to be part of it. Your friends get to buy in. People get behind you. There's so much more to it. And so the liquidity is completely different. So while you're exactly right, Andrew, there is some level of liquidity available and more programs are becoming available. It's really de minimis. So if I'm an Instagram shareholder, before it goes, well, that's a bad example, but if I'm a private company example, that's not Dropbox, right? And I think our company's doing great and we're growing, and I'm limited to selling, $10,000 worth because the CEO and the board does not want to see the stock in too many hands because that creates its own set of problems. So it's completely different. So I agree with you. There is some liquidity as opposed to none, but it's so limited, and there's so many problems that occur as you become very big and you try to go that way for employee liquidity that I think you should just go public. Why not take it the other way where the public market then gives you the opportunity to really see how your company is valued?
And Andrew, are people scared? I mean, is that what's going on here? Because they look at what's happened to Etsy or the fact that Square had to basically do a down round on its IPO, and they just don't want that kind of negative attention?
Well, there's two things. One is that some of these secondary financings where someone's selling shares in a privately held company to a different investor, these deals are actually structured. So someone might say, I'll buy the stock from you at this price, and if I make a 2x return, I'll split the profit on top of that 50-50 with you. So there's ways to come in at a very...
after that hard, Andrew. The SEC...
I agree with you. I agree. I think, and particularly where the SEC, I believe, is going to get more involved, and they should be, is if we follow the law, if someone's brokering that transaction, not investing out of their own fund or their own personal capital, that's a regulated activity. And so that's where the SEC already is here, and they're examining these structured deals when there's a broker. When it's someone investing out of their fund or investing their personal capital, the rules very clearly say that the SEC is not supervising those. One thing I want to mention is that if an employee in a privately held company sells 10% of their position and they take that money home, their spouse will say, I don't want you to quit your job. You stay there and you keep working there, because we now know how much the 90% is worth. And it's good for society because they use that money to make angel investments.
You don't know what that 90% is worth.
Last word.
Right. You don't know what that 90% is worth unless it's public. Right? Because just look, one day Snapchat is worth $16 billion. The next day it's worth 12 according to Fidelity. Now maybe with their audio and video calls it's worth 20. You have no idea. If Snapchat were public right now, we'd know exactly what it was worth.
Yeah, my joke is that Fidelity is the new NASDAQ. Mark Cuban, thank you so much for calling in. Andrew Romans, thank you for joining us. Fascinating discussion there as we continue to watch and see whether we'll start to get that IPO flow picking up again. We'll find out what value investor Mario Gabelli thinks about Tesla and the auto stocks coming up when Closing Bell comes right back.